I am NetMoverSitan. Welcome to the law of Chapter 5.5. The second part of it. Yield my flesh to claim my bones. It's 984-09 or later. At this point, aboard Mephistopheles as it was driving through the back streets of District 20, Heathcliff had a dour look on his face, knowing that they were finally there, as he was looking out the rattling bus window. It wasn't raining, yet it was grey and opaque as if it was overcast. Black, pungent smoke clouds devoured any view of the clear sky. Dante noting that this was where Heathcliff used to roam. Yisang remembering that it remained that grey, that deep into the heart of the back streets. When he arrived in the nest of that district, after leaving District 19, it was sepia-hued. Faust explained that this phenomenon can be explained by the fact that the technology used to drain color saturation is situated at the center of District 20, like the Anticorp HQ. Variations in hue may occur in areas farther away from its source. This explained the differences in hue to Yisang. Two others wanted to jump into this conversation to direct it away from what Yisang and Faust were about to talk about. This was from Rodier and Gregor. Rodier wanted to ask them something, as did Gregor. Rodier noting that the buildings in the back streets look a little different from where Yisang used to live, wanting to know what was up with that. In fact, it's what Gregor wanted to know as well. Yeah, it's the back streets. It's bound to look less nice than the nest. It usually does. Dante was silent during this. It's been a while since they started on that journey together. At least 8 months. Possibly more. They were starting to grow more comfortable around Task Force Damned. It's why he found Gregor and Rodier's attempt to keep the conversation comprehensible enough so that Heathcliff can understand it. Yes, I know, pretty amusing, isn't it? But it's possible. Yisang decided to elaborate on that. The conversation he was having with Faust, making any efforts to simplify this conversation in vain. This was also familiar to Dante. While they wanted to know more about the color-draining tech of T-Corp and other aspects of their operations, the answers weren't there right now, so they put it aside. They approached Heathcliff, who was sitting by himself, deep in thought. Heathcliff noticed him approach. Dante asked him if he's still thinking about what to wear. Heathcliff protested, jumping up from his seat. Clearly this was the case. He admitted that it was somewhat true. He was mostly thinking about his past. Dante knew that Heathcliff used to live in the back streets of District 20 as part of a syndicate. Virgilius told them that they were going there, instead of going straight to the nest, as per company orders. Dante suspected that there was something for them to do in the back streets, as Heathcliff did spend time there, believing that they might run into a golden bar there. Ishmael didn't think so. If it was that common, they wouldn't need to drive on that farcical misery tour in the first place. Dante saw the point in that. Heathcliff added to that by saying that Wuthering Heights is quite the manor in more ways than one. It's not anywhere near some run-down backstreets like that. To be honest with you, I doubt they'd even empty their in the backstreets. Bitterly amused by the fact that there's a chasm of wealth between the inhabitants of the backstreets and them. Different worlds, same. He was then serious by saying that they sent him an invitation, seeing it as obvious that a golden bower is there, or at least somewhere in that nest. Faust confirmed this. They'll eventually head there. Then the low voice of Heathcliff blended in with the conversations outside the bus. There was clearly something happening outside. He understood that before they get anywhere, they need to clear the road of whatever is blocking them. Okay, Heathcliff, time for you to smash some skulls in. Virgilius told him that he's half right, and this surprised Heathcliff as he was jolted awake from his uncharacteristic daze, likely due to the abrupt breaking again. He then asked what was wrong with him and the vroom vroom mass. Neither of them ever do anything with a proper forewarning. Well, Charon doesn't give a about anything unrelated to going somewhere and Virgilius. As for Virgilius, as long as you don't overstep any boundaries, he'll have no reason to deliver a lesson in pain. Otherwise, he cares about the reason why he joined Limbus Company in the first place, restoring the two that matter to him to what they were prior to the events of Leviathan. Apparently, Virgilius encountered Roland during his rampage after Angelica was killed by the pianist. Roland, sometime after that, considered Virgilius to be the most dangerous fixer. Well, now, clearly that assessment was not based on raw strength and killing potential, at least not by itself. I suspect that the reason why Virgilius decided to get the out of there was because he would prefer to stay out of this. He knew that he wouldn't have a chance of winning against a straight-up fight against the Black Silence. Either that or there'd be too much collateral damage. Whatever the case, he hasn't survived this long fighting battles that he knows he can't win. This was someone that had a fixer office full of those that he was close to, those that he knew was competent. So to be in charge of emotional retards, the traumatized and straight up lunatics is a significant downgrade for him. Anyway, Virgilius saw it as unnecessary to warn him. He told him that those outside the bus were their targets. Wow, what an hole you've become. Dante wanted to know more. Masson understood this to mean targets to be eliminated. According to Virgilius, this was apparently not the case. He's not got the precise details of that mission. They are to make contact with a target among them, find a target, extract the necessary intel, and asked if it was clear to Dante. Dante was unsure of how they're supposed to find the target if he's not going to tell them who it is. Faust translated this to Virgilius. He told them that they'll find out when they get there. They're asking him questions that he has no answers to, telling them not to waste his time. Dante, I suspect that if you were sure that you could get away with this, you'd give him the finger. That's, at least, you'd understand. He then told them to get off the bus. This made Dante wary of the way that Virgilius answered them. Yet they managed to pull through anyway. They hoped that it would become clearer once they get there. They got off the bus with the rest of the Damned League. I really hope that Virgilius isn't this world's up version of Batman. Outside, among the early Victorian-looking buildings, one of the fighters was telling Aniki that one of the enemy was heading their way, who told them not to worry about him, he'll handle him, telling him to try and not get themselves killed. Dante saw this as a mess. It didn't take long to see what appeared to be a battlefield, it was the battlefield of a violent gang war. Black cloaks fluttering under the grey sky, and bloodthirsty blades clashing violently. The battle wasn't even 30 paces away from them. Ishmael identified them as part of the Kurokumo clan. Dante has heard of them. They had identities from that syndicate. A large subsidiary of the Thumb, one of the Fingers. Seeing them as wearing similar outfits, yes. They saw them as wearing similar outfits. The Thumb, for those that need a reminder, are a finger that's a stickler to protocol, even extending this to outsiders. A common fixer is seen as the equivalent of a soldado. A Class 1 fixer, or a fixer affiliated with an association, is the equivalent of a capo. A board member of a wing, and possibly an association section director, is seen as the equivalent of a sottocapo, which would likely make a wing CEO or the one in charge of an association as the equivalent of the capo de capi. Breaches of protocol are severely punished by mutilation, the severity depending on the breach itself. The Thumb is patterned on the Italian Mafia. The Kurokumo clan is patterned on the Yakuza, which is the reason for the traditional Japanese attire and the tattoos, besides strength augmentation. Dante saw this as correct. Then they asked, who were they fighting? Heathcliff saw it as a strife, saying that as if he was reading from an encyclopedia. Clearly, this was Tuesday to those living in the backstreets. Heathcliff confirmed this, as fighting between syndicates happens often, possibly about street attacks or a trivial turf dispute. Don Quixote saw them as blood-sucking leeches seeking to oppress and exploit the weak with violence. There wasn't a place that those scum don't infest. Well, she's not wrong about that. Certainly not in the backstreets. It's why they practically rule the backstreets. Heathcliff didn't see it as anything new. Most were like that, some willing to go farther than others. Such as the blokes from the Kurokumo clan that was walking right towards them. He raised his bat and pointed it at the approaching thug, who was threatened by them crowding like they're picking a fight, asking if that's what they want. Ortis advised Heathcliff to lower his weapon, to not do anything rash, as there was no need to escalate this further. He did no such thing, despite this warning. The bat aimed threateningly at the thug of the Kurokumo clan. Heathcliff saw it as pointless, as it's a foregone conclusion. Sinclair understood that they're going to have to fight him. Heathcliff confirmed this. They're in the middle of a strife. They want to make it clear that where they were was their turf. And it wouldn't hurt the Kurokumo clan to force some unwitting travellers to pay the toll for the road. The thug was mildly impressed by how quickly he caught on. He then strutted before them as if he owned the place. This detective side of Heathcliff impressed Ishmael, as he's usually the kind to lose a battle of wits with a gym teacher. Then again, his 7 Association identity got to Section 4, so it seems more like he wastes his intelligence a lot of the time. Yes. He wastes his intelligence a lot of the time, but not always. The Kurokumo clan thug then got straight to the point. He was charging 500,000 ARN per person, much to the shock of Don Quixote. Yes, he counted 14 in total, so that was 7 million ARN, warning them not to skimp out of them. Not wanting to make the business messy by going through the bus themselves. Please don't. You'll have to deal with the red gaze. And while he's not allowed to fight alongside the damned dozen unless they're all down and Dante can't revive them safely, I doubt his contract prevents him from fighting in self-defense, or if Charon is physically threatened. That move would be suicidal. Roger asked Dante if they've heard that this was a highway robbery. Dante understood that. Dante didn't see it as mattering how much they demanded, as he wasn't, they weren't willing to negotiate. Which roughly translated meant that Don Quixote could dispense justice. Ryushu can have some fun cutting them down, and Heathcliff can smash some skulls in. Then Ishmael noticed something that she wanted to bring to Dante's attention, which they understood. Don Quixote noticed something in the battlefield. A woman was wounded. They needed to rescue her, asking if they agreed. Dante, noticing someone bleeding out on the ground in the clashing blades and black cloaks. This annoyed Heathcliff, telling her to stop with that justice rubbish. It's a syndicate turf war. Honor has no meaning there. Massault agreed. Complicated mathematics were not needed to expect unnecessary allied casualties in that effort, should they involve themselves. Don Quixote didn't want to leave behind someone undefended. Now, Dante saw this as an improvement. In District 10, she caused trouble by attracting attention from the Kurokumo clan. Oh wait, no. Not the Kurokumo clan, the Teen Tang gang. Why am I getting those two confused? When she saved a shopkeeper, along with her hitting the jackpot using wish power. And in District 11, she broke a barrier at the checkpoint in the attempt to rescue someone. which required a brutal beatdown from Virgilius to get the point across to show some restraint. Thankfully, she wasn't reckless this time, as she was able to show at least 5 minutes of restraint. It annoyed her, though. But it's different this time. Dante thinks that they need to help that woman. This excited Don Quixote. Dante, don't encourage her! This angered Heathcliff and worried Ishmael. And Dante didn't think that they should get involved because it was the right thing to do. It was because of the vague instruction that Virgilius gave them. That the woman is possibly the target they're looking for. She might have some useful intel. If not her, they can beat it out of the Kurokumo clan. This impressed Urtis. She went into full boss suck-up mode. She was actually awestruck by their genius. Dante noticed, actually, which implied that she really was sucking up to him. Well, them. Regardless of if she was honest about that. The thug of the Kurokumo clan was getting annoyed by them ignoring him. He saw the sympathetic look that they gave the wounded woman, as meaning that they're allies of the Blade lineage. If Dante was intending to negotiate with them, it would have fallen apart at this point. As the thug drew his blade, Urtis announced that this rational deliberation followed by a sensible decision would be returned with a flawless victory. Actually, it's more like you or one of the others delivering a fatality. She told them to prepare for battle. Or, as I'd call it, kill them! After the immediate number of Kurokumo clan thugs were cut down, Ryushu was unimpressed, saying SAD, or such a disappointment. All bark, no bites. While the others were slowly recovering from the excitement of battle, Don Quixote didn't waste any time and bolted towards the wounded woman. She first checked her pulse, and Honglu was impressed by her being able to do this through the forehead, not knowing that it was possible. The wounded lady was alive. Heathcliff asked if she's the one with the intel that they need, as the others gathered around that woman. They noticed that she was dressed in a similar way to the Kurokumo clan members, but different. She was wearing a mix of a black and purple hanbok and grey suit, along with other traditional Korean attire. She also had a different weapon, specifically a jikdo, or Korean straight sword. Dante remembered that she was of the Blade lineage, and the difference between the two factions were more apparent. Also, the Kurokumo clan was an urban plague-level syndicate. This was 21 months prior. Who knows, they might have grown stronger since then. Well, if they haven't, you'd think they'd be able to take on an urban nightmare-level syndicate like the Blade lineage, and fail miserably. Well, I'm sure we'll find out why that wasn't the case soon enough. Don Quixote checked the pulse of the others, but this woman would appear to be the only survivor, and even in her case, she was barely alive. While this was going on, Urtis informed Dante that some Kurokumo clan members were interrogated during the battle, but nothing of note was gained. Dante hopes that he was right about this, or rather they were right about this. Don Quixote recommended that she be moved to the bus for medical treatment. even though they can't invert time for her, and as far as they were aware, they didn't carry her first aid kits. Dante couldn't see any other way. They asked Massault to carry her back to the bus. He complied, much to the annoyance of Virgilius. Well, what comes around goes around. He asked, since when did bringing an unauthorized, unverified guest into their bus become such an acceptable practice? Well, you should have been more specific with who that target is, and besides, there was no time to send a few forms to HQ to okay it. Dante told him that they had no choice. If she died, the answers she could give them would die with her. Faust, of course, translated for them. And she agreed with their decision on this occasion. As annoying as this was to him, Virgilius was forced to concede to this, but he advised them to be mindful of bringing in strangers onto that bus from now on. Dante was sure that Virgilius had more to say, but he simply sighed and dropped the subject, likely because he neglected to give a description of who to look for, if he knew at all. This was uncomfortable for Dante. Don Quixote considered their decision as just. Dante thanked her. Then Yi Sang emerged from the back door with good news. He did what he could for the Blade lineage survivor, but before he could finish that sentence, it was clear that this woman was awake. That Blade lineage woman wanted to know where she was. Ryushu said TB, or the bus. Honglu welcomed her to the bus and was about to say what they were when that woman saw that Ryushu had an odashi, immediately readying her own weapon, seeing this as a sign to get ready for a fight. She demanded that they identify themselves. Were they with the Kurokumo clan? So this is a case of mistaken identity. Ryushu said no. Sinclair was about to identify themselves, then that woman asked why Ryushu wielded an odashi. Ryushu wanted to kill her at this point as she wouldn't listen. Dante cautioned her to stop. Ryushu was off by her for two reasons. One, she refused to listen, making that conversation longer than it needed to be. Two, she dared to compare the Kurokumo clan's scrap metals to her blade. So it was because she insulted your weapon more than anything. She asked if there was any reason for her not to proceed with OOF, or off of forehead. Dante simply told her that she can't tell them anything if she's dead. This annoyed Ryushu, but she stood down. Dante noting that she often shows bursts of emotion in the most unexpected times. But it's a relief that she listens to them, when it matters. The woman noted that it's not exactly like the Kurokumo clans, and their uniform is certainly different. She then asked who Dante was. He wore a rather loud timepiece, asking if they're unable to communicate otherwise. Yi Sang informed her that Dante is their manager. Their vocalizations won't reach her ears. She then recognized the familiar sense that his voice carried. Yi Sang noting that even in the districts that he's resided in, he's not met those that speak as he did. She understood that they both spoke in the same way, and he was familiar with that choice of verbiage, asking if he's from District 19. Yi Sang confirmed that it's where he came from, even though he fled that district. That woman is in a similar position, as was many of the Blade lineage. Dante observed that meeting someone from her home district made her visibly relaxed. She slumped on the chair, her breathing labored. He introduced himself and told her that he operated on the wounds that she suffered. Does he have equipment in his quarters? Well, there'd have to be some form of that for him to be able to do that. The woman recognized that she was acting with brutishness, despite their kindness, apologizing for this. She introduced herself as aeng-du, a Selsu from the lineage that deals in blades. Roger advised Dante that they should leave the talking to Yi Sang. Dante agreed, knowing that things would go a lot smoother if this happened. Aeng-du noted that if he's from District 19, then he must be aware of who they are. He was somewhat aware, but he heard this from tales from the streets. That, and he also has a Blade lineage identity. The Blade lineage are bound to no master, no land. Yet, from whence do they flee? She saw it as a tale too long to be shared in full, but they had no choice but to seek a territory for them to thrive in. Okay, I'll save the story of the Blade lineage's origins that I've been able to piece together from before they became a syndicate to this point. Yes, as there's more background later. I'll save that for towards the end. Yi Sang saw not a lot that can be done to assist them, if she didn't impart to them the particulars of her pursuers. She made a sweeping glance at all of them, then her eyes appeared heavy with crushing exhaustion. Yes, the crushing exhaustion. And then she recognized that she saw that they were skilled enough to defeat the Kurokomo clan, and that they were quite capable of doing so. They put a bounty on their heads, her mentor and the rest of them. Heathcliff saw that this wasn't any other strife. It sounded more personal than their usual turf war. Aeng-du then spoke of District 19 as fraught with corruption and disturbance to the lives of the public. There was very little that the men and women of the Blade, who desired nothing but to train and walk the path of martial arts, could do to change the wing, now known as Salpipieo Agro-Industries, or ESCOR. Okay, I knew it had something to do with agriculture, whether it be more how things operated there or due to how their singularity worked. Anyway, it was also implied to be full of corruption and rotten to the core, even by the city standards. Any difference between how morally bankrupt that wing was compared to the syndicates seemed marginal at best. There is a saying that applies to this situation. What other choice does a monk who abhors their temple have but to leave it behind? Which was why the Blade lineage left District 19. Yi Sang understood that the people of District 19 suffered still. You know it's bad when a nest is not much nicer than the back streets. And that's likely where the damned dozen are going after District 20. And District 20 is showing all of the worst of Victorian Britain. And that's based on Yi Sang's memories, showing that the nest is an oppressive place. Never mind the back streets. Yes, oppressing to those living there. As for the current situation, aeng-du continued by saying that they departed in search of a new home, which was no easy journey. Most territories were already home to others. In order for them to settle, conflict was unavoidable. During one of these conflicts, her mentor brought an invitation to enter a library with him. Ah, that's invitation. And this caught Virgilius's attention. He certainly wanted to know about the experiences of the Mola boatworks. Yi Sang saw it as an odd way to phrase it, as, well, she had a memory of that. According to aeng-du, they arrived at the library to make their escape from the Kurokumo clan. Again, how did an urban nightmare have their backs against the wall against an urban plague? But they were forced to battle those inside the library and were defeated. Then they found themselves in the back streets of District 20. They were likely disoriented. And then she mentioned her mentor, Bamboo-Hatted Kim, and this made her leap from her seat with her eyes wide open. She believed that he was alive. Still, they needed to go to Yongjin Building. Yi Sang advised her to not be hasty with her wild movements, as they might tear the wounds that he stitched up. Then she collapsed. Roger was worried that she was dead. But according to Faust, she just fainted due to a sudden rise in blood pressure without an adequate blood supply. Yeah, she was bleeding when they first saw her, so I can see how that could happen. This was a relief to Rodia. Ishmael noting that Dante was right. She did have some useful intel. Specifically what this was about and where they needed to go. Otis noting that they have some business in that building. Dante wasn't sure, as it's unclear what this has to do with their mission, if it has anything at all. Yes. If it has anything at all, it will make itself clear soon. Asking if they should look into that library. Dante, it's in the outskirts, so I doubt it. At least not anytime soon. Then Charon alerted them to danger. A bunch of people were in Mephi's way, swinging swords around. Black clothes, telling the passengers to move out and protect Mephi. Otis identified them as Kurokumo clan reinforcements. Dante asks what they can do. Well, before they can go anywhere, it's time to kill some more thugs. Well, we've certainly learned more about the Blade lineage. But this lore breakdown isn't over yet. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!